Alright, we are back again today with another cat tutorial. It's been a bit since the last one, so I thought I'd make an updated version of how I would go about creating a cat mesh. So I've got my two screens. I've got one on the left so that I can see the model as I'm working, and I got my one on the right to actively model. And what I'm doing here is I'm just blocking in some very core forms just so I can visualize the shapes of the cat. I tend not to use ZBrush all that much anymore because I prefer to just block out my main forms in Blender just so I can get the proportions right and the silhouettes right and not be too bogged down by having something be correct or high fidelity. And then I kind of move in quickly with a soft retopo. This can be the final retopo, so it can be animation ready topology, or it can just be whatever's going to help you get your shape language the cleanest. I'll generally add like a seam just so I can keep certain areas separate, so I can see where certain loops and edge flows are happening to keep them clean and usable. Makes it really easy to select things as well and block them off. Here I'm just going to move into a quick face retopo. I end up changing this multiple times, but just honestly whatever is going to work for you and keep your mesh as clean as possible. I'm often going in and smoothing these polys, just keeping the shapes as round and clean as possible. I find that when I work in this method with Lowpoly and subdividing those polygons, it limits how many errors I can make because you've got a limited number of choices you can make pushing and pulling those vertices, as opposed to sculpting where you can really do anything at all. It just helps keep things a little bit simpler, especially when you're working on stylized work like this. Here I'm just carving out a socket for the eye and placing a ball in there. Tends to look pretty scary at the beginning, but you just kind of keep pushing and pulling until it's where you like it. Trying to keep a loop in mind for the mouth edge flow around the face is a little bit tricky for quadrupeds and animals. I'm kind of keeping in mind human topology here, where I know that if I was to animate the mouth, I would want to be able to open it cleanly, so I'm just going to like add a little mouth bag as I would typically. And then I'm just going to push and pull so it looks a little bit better. So sped up a little bit in the future. I just gave it a quick unwrap with those seams I'd marked previously, and I'm going to just jump right into texture painting, which is where I really wanted to focus on this model. I just am kind of slapping in some core values, just trying to build up the values and core read of it. So this is a gray tabby. I really wanted to get that white underbelly and gray head with some of those markings. And then after I've got those core shapes and forms kind of blocked in, I'm just going to go in and start adding some of these details. And I'm using a soft round brush here, and I'm just sampling the trail that the color leaves behind to try and softly blend things in. I tend to work in a way where I jump back and forth between texturing and proportional editing, as you can see here. I find it's best not to fixate on one area of the model too much because you can get really lost in it. Sometimes if you can't figure out why something looks weird or if something's wrong, you need to work on a different area of the model. So you'll find that I jump back and forth between shader work, texture work, and proportional work quite a bit. Here I'm just altering the main shapes of the model because I was really trying to create the Toon cat from the meme, and I realized that my shapes were just not communicating that. So I went back and I altered many of the shapes, made the feet really small, made the head big, made the belly bigger, and I became really happy with the result as I was working. Here I'm just masking out an area to clean it up. Here I'm just refining some of those shapes, trying to figure out the shape language I'm going for, keeping the stylized shapes of the markings on the forehead really clean, and then adding in some gradients to the eyes just to soften that expression a little bit. Here I'm trying to focus on like creating a pattern, honestly, with all of the tabby markings, keeping it as clean as possible, just so that it reads really well from a distance. You can see on the left there I've got my shader set up and my lighting, and I've turned off overlays just so I can really see my model in advance as I'm texturing it. See how it'll turn out. I always like to make sure I'm checking in with the final presentation so I can see where I'm going to adjust things in advance, and so I'm not working for wasted effort essentially. Here I'm just gonna quickly throw on a rig because I figured why not animate it, you know? I thought it would be a cute little touch to do. So here I'm just like quickly throwing in a simple quadruped rig. I can go into more depth about this if anybody's interesting, but as you can see, I'm just like referencing a cat skeleton, trying my best to align the bones that I'm setting up with a skeleton. And then just quickly rigging the eyes to those bones and adding some ear bones so I can add a little ear wiggle. And from here, just going to kind of work on posing, seeing how all those different elements move. And here's the final result with a couple of animations. I had a ton of fun making this. I hope you guys enjoyed watching this tutorial, and I will see you in the next one. Bye! OIIAOIIA